Maybe you've been walking through a season that feels endless, where pain replaces peace and silence fills the spaces where answers should be. You look back at your life and see broken dreams, missed chances, and unanswered prayers. You wonder if maybe your story has reached its conclusion, if the author of heaven has stopped writing. But he hasn't. God is still writing your story, and the next chapter is about to reveal everything you've been waiting for. There are moments when everything feels like it's falling apart, when your heart is tired, your faith is shaken, and your dreams seem to fade into silence. You wake up every morning wondering if things will ever change, if light will ever return to your darkness. You replay the past, searching for signs of hope, but all you see are unanswered prayers and unfinished promises. Yet, even when you can't feel him, God's hand is still writing. He hasn't abandoned the story of your life. He's simply writing in invisible ink, words that will appear in his perfect timing. God never stops writing, even in the pauses, even in the pain. What you call an ending, heaven calls a comma. The moments that confuse you are the very ones he uses to refine you. Every tear you have shed has been collected. Every sigh has been heard. Every silent cry has been recorded in the script of your destiny. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. The author of your story writes with compassion, and even when you feel like your book is closed, he's still adding pages filled with grace, redemption, and beauty. Sometimes the page must go blank so a new one can begin. That's why certain relationships ended, why certain dreams collapsed, and why you had to walk away from things that once defined you. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God had to clear the clutter before he could reveal clarity. He's not writing a tragedy, he's building a testimony. What feels like a delay is divine editing. He's rewriting your sentences, turning every painful punctuation mark into a message of hope. So trust the pen that never slips. Even when you can't see what he's doing, know that he's still working. Every line of your story is covered in purpose. God's handwriting is steady, his ink is love, and his signature is victory. The pen is still in his hands, and he's not finished with you yet. Sometimes, what we call the end is really just the start of something sacred. You may have lost a relationship, a dream, or a sense of direction. But that loss is not the end. It's an opening. God often allows something to fall apart so that something greater can fall into place. The pain of letting go is real, but the purpose behind it is divine. Endings are the soil where new beginnings grow. The seasons of loss and change feel like storms that destroy, but they actually prepare the ground for new life. Think of a tree shedding its leaves. It looks barren, but deep down, new roots are forming, getting ready to bloom again. God removes people, opportunities, and situations not to hurt you, but to free you from what cannot walk with you into your next season. What you thought was rejection was actually protection. If you could see what God sees, you would understand why he allowed certain things to end. He knew that if those doors had remained open, you would have settled for less than what he has planned. Every tear that fell was watering a promise you don't yet see. The ache in your heart is not punishment. It's proof that you are growing beyond the boundaries of your past. So don't fear the end of a chapter. Lift your eyes, breathe deeply, and trust that something new is being written. Something that couldn't exist without the ending that came before it. God's endings are not failures, they're invitations to transformation. There will be seasons when heaven feels silent, when your prayers seem to vanish into thin air, and when every door you knock on stays closed. You look around and see others moving forward while you feel stuck, overlooked, and forgotten. But what you don't realize is that God hides his chosen ones before he reveals them. Silence is his classroom, and the waiting is his workshop. When Joseph sat in prison, he wasn't being punished, he was being positioned. When David returned to the fields after being anointed king, he wasn't being ignored. He was being instructed. When you feel invisible, you're actually being refined. God uses hidden seasons to strengthen your character, deepen your faith, and prepare your heart for what's next. What feels like isolation is actually incubation. You see, it's easy to praise God when everything is moving, but real faith is forged in the stillness, when nothing happens, yet you believe anyway. That's when your roots grow deeper, your perspective widens, and your soul matures. You begin to understand that preparation is not punishment, it's a sacred gift that equips you for the promise. So don't lose hope in the waiting. You are not forgotten. You are being fashioned. The same God who hid Moses in the desert and Jesus in Nazareth is working behind the scenes for you. Your name is still on his lips. When the right moment comes, he will call you out of the shadows and into your purpose. Pain has a voice, and if you listen closely, it speaks wisdom. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every failure carries a message from heaven. I'm preparing you. We often wish to escape pain, but pain is the tool God uses to mold greatness. Without the breaking, there can be no building. Without the crushing, there can be no anointing. The oil that flows from your life is pressed out in the dark places. Pain exposes what comfort hides. It reveals strength you didn't know you had, and faith you didn't know you needed. Every tear you have cried has watered a field of purpose that will one day bloom with meaning. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and say, if that hadn't broken me, I would have never discovered my calling. God uses the things that hurt us to create the heart that helps others. Don't despise the pain. Study it. Let it teach you compassion, patience, humility, and endurance. Let it soften your heart instead of hardening it. Every painful experience is a classroom, every scar is a lesson, and every setback is a setup. God never wastes what you've suffered.
So instead of running from your wounds, offer them to Him. Tell Him, Lord, use this pain to make me stronger, wiser, and kinder. Because what once broke you will one day bless you, and your scars will become the proof that grace can turn suffering into strength. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've waited. You've watched others receive what you've been asking for, and you've wondered, God, when is it my turn? But what you don't see is that while you wait, heaven works. The delay is not denial, it's divine design. God isn't withholding, He's preparing. He's arranging people, timing, and opportunities in ways you can't imagine. Every promise worth having comes with a waiting period. Abraham waited decades for Isaac. Sarah laughed before she believed. Joseph's dream took years to unfold. Even Jesus waited until the appointed hour. Why? Because destiny is too heavy to be delivered prematurely. The promise must match your maturity. God uses waiting seasons to stretch your faith and shape your heart so you can handle what's coming. Waiting reveals your level of trust. It shows whether you believe in the promise or in the pressure of time. If you rush the process, you'll ruin the product. But if you rest in His timing, you'll receive something that lasts. The longer the wait, the deeper the reward. Every day of waiting adds weight to your testimony. So don't despair when things take longer than expected. God hasn't forgotten your prayer. He's perfecting your miracle. The moment will come when everything aligns, when what was once delayed will suddenly arrive, and you'll realize it was worth every tear, every test, every moment of silence. The author has not forgotten your story. He's just polishing the next chapter to make sure it shines in the light of His glory. Every great story has a turning point, a moment where the pain becomes purpose, where the storm turns into sunrise. What you've been fighting isn't random, it's refining you. Every battle you've faced was designed to prepare you for the blessings waiting on the other side. The very things that tried to destroy you will one day testify that God was with you all along. You see, breakthroughs rarely come without battles. David needed Goliath to reach his crown. Joseph needed betrayal to reach his destiny. Your opposition is confirmation that you're close to something significant. The enemy wouldn't fight this hard if there wasn't something sacred ahead. Every sleepless night, every tear, every closed door, they're all proof that something powerful is being birthed. Sometimes God lets the storm rage to show you what cannot be shaken. He uses adversity to build endurance, conflict to strengthen conviction, and pressure to produce power. When it feels unbearable, remember, diamonds are formed under extreme pressure. The struggle you're in today is shaping the strength you'll need tomorrow. Don't quit before the miracle. The night always feels darkest just before dawn. If you hold on, the same place that saw your greatest pain will soon witness your greatest praise. Your battle is not the end, it's the bridge to your breakthrough. There comes a time when God doesn't just change your situation, He changes you. He begins to strip away false labels, to erase the lies you've believed about yourself, and to rewrite your identity with truth and grace. The person you were in your last chapter cannot live in this one. The old you was necessary for the journey, but the new you is essential for the promise. You are not your mistakes, your failures, or your fears. You are not what people said about you or what you once believed about yourself. You are who God says you are, chosen, forgiven, and loved beyond measure. When God rewrites your identity, He takes the broken words of shame and turns them into poetry of purpose. He turns the rejected into the redeemed, the overlooked into the anointed. Sometimes we cling to old identities because we're afraid to step into the unknown. But God cannot bless the person you pretend to be. He can only bless the one He created you to be. You were never meant to live in comparison or condemnation. You are meant to walk in confidence, not because you're perfect, but because you're chosen. Let grace rewrite your name. You may have been called broken, but God calls you beloved. You may have been labeled lost, but God calls you found. You may have been scarred, but God calls you strong. The story of your identity is being rewritten, and the new name God gives you will reflect the destiny He designed for you. There's a blessing buried inside every hardship you face, but you must look at it through eyes of faith. Every pain has a purpose, every delay hides direction, and every battle conceals a blessing. What you see as a setback is often the setup God uses to position you for your next level. Nothing you've gone through will be wasted, not a single tear, not a single trial. Without battles, we'd never discover our strength. Without pain, we'd never appreciate healing. Without loss, we'd never learn gratitude. The same pressure that feels unbearable now is the process God uses to bring forth gold from your soul. The most powerful stories are not written in comfort, they are forged in fire. Your pain will become someone else's hope. The strength you gain in this struggle will one day lift someone who's walking through their own. That's how God works. He transforms your suffering into service. He uses what hurt you to help heal others. So instead of asking why me, start saying, use me. Because the very thing the enemy meant for evil will be the thing God turns into your elevation. Every battle has a blessing, and the deeper the struggle, the greater the glory that follows. Maybe you've lost things that felt impossible to recover: time, peace, relationships, opportunities, or even yourself. But the author of your story is also the restorer of your soul. God never allows you to lose something without having the power to replace it with something better. Restoration is not returning to what was. It's moving toward what could be, rebuilt stronger than before. When Job lost everything, it seemed hopeless, but God gave him double for his trouble. When Naomi thought her story was over, God brought Ruth to her side and changed her future. The same God who restored them can restore you. The years you think were wasted were actually years of preparation. Nothing is ever truly lost when God holds the pen. Restoration doesn't just bring back what was taken, it multiplies what remains. God redeems pain, renews hope, and revives what once seemed dead. He doesn't patch up old wounds, he creates new beginnings out of broken pieces. The version of you that's emerging is stronger, wiser, and more resilient than the one that fell.
So don't mourn forever over what's gone. Lift your eyes. God is already writing restoration into your story. What's ahead will be so full of favor that you'll forget the pain of the past. You're not just getting back what you lost, you're being prepared for overflow. This is it. The moment when you realize that your story is not over, it's evolving. The same God who walked you through the valley is now leading you to the mountain. The same hands that held you in pain are now opening doors of promise. You've survived too much to give up now. The pages ahead are filled with hope, joy, and divine surprises. The time of mourning is over. The time of movement has begun. You don't need to understand every plot twist. Just trust the author. He knows how to turn tragedy into triumph, waiting into winning, delay into destiny. The ink of grace is still flowing, and every word he writes now is leading you toward restoration, renewal, and revelation. Step into this new chapter with faith, not fear. Leave behind what hurts you, but take with you what it taught you. You've been tested, and now you'll be trusted. You've been refined, and now you'll be revealed. The next part of your story will not be written in sorrow, but in strength. So stand tall, breathe deeply, and declare it with confidence. God is writing a new chapter in my story, because what's coming next is greater than anything you've lost. The author of eternity is still at work, and his ending is always glorious.